find your why behind doing a triathlon or a race or anything that you do in life. Because if you don't know the reason behind what you're doing, then it's hard to wake up in the morning to go do that.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to the Two Fit Podcast, hosted by the Two Fit guys, Jake and Josh. Now, Two Fit, by definition, is actively pursuing a state of health and well-being beyond perceived limitations. So, if you are looking to push the boundaries of performance mentally, physically, and everywhere in between, then you have come to the right place. On the Two Fit Podcast, we will be interviewing and having fireside chats with renowned experts, from doctors and strength and conditioning coaches to athletes and entrepreneurs. Our goal is to extract tools and tricks of the trade that you can implement, whether you're a world-class athlete, weekend warrior, entrepreneur, or grinding out the 8 to 5, all in order to assist you on your journey to becoming Two Fit.
All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the Two Fit Podcast. And today we're honored to be sitting in with Jen Roulon of jenroulon.com. She is a Ironman veteran, and what she specializes in is helping people train for triathlons and Ironmans and incorporate that into their daily life. And she's also a very busy gal, and so this has been a long time coming, and we're very excited that we finally get to do this. So, Jen, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for being patient.
Yeah, welcome to the show. It'll be fun.
Glad to be on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, so we normally start out just giving people some background on you, kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So back in 1989, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I remember sitting on the couch watching the Ironman World Championship at the end on NBC I think it was ABC, Wide World of Sports back in the days. And it was the Ironman World Championship. It was Dave Scott and Mark Allen on that final showdown of them running. And these guys are running, under 6-minute miles, I think. I mean, it was just an insane, crazy, crazy run. I think they did a 2:40, something like that. And so when these guys are running, I thought, holy cow, that's amazing. And then an hour later, I see a woman cross the finish line. And I thought, oh, well, if a woman can do it, I can do it. So I told my mom, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to do an Ironman Triathlon. And I said I was going to do that one. I said I was going to do the one in Hawaii. And then in 2002, before my 31st birthday, I did Ironman Wisconsin. And then I did 8 Ironmans later. Let me rephrase that. 9 Ironmans later. And I've done 10 Ironmans, and I still have not gotten to Hawaii. And I am still trying to really try to hone in on that the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. But, I know my time will come. I know my journey will come. But within all of that Ironman training, I realized that I found the passion to coach athletes to get ready for their first triathlon, their first Ironman. And what I loved and what I got a lot of feedback is how much I enjoyed my journey doing Ironman triathlons and how I was always smiling. And I was like, but it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. If you're not smiling of what you're supposed to be doing, then don't do it anymore. And so my way of teaching these guys is to go into an Ironman injury-free, and that you're smiling the whole time, and that you're loving it. You may hate it a few times on that race course, because I know I have, but for the most part, you love doing what you're doing. So that's what I try to implement in my coaching as well.
So you need to teach me how to smile through all the on your lefts.
Yes.
These people on their Tron bicycles, flying by me.
Getting their butt kicked
That's
on
right.
the bike, yeah. So how long did it take you or how long did you prepare for that first one when you were 30?
When I said I was going to do that, I think I was 19. So it took me a while. I did a couple like little sprints. I rented a bike. I did my first triathlon on a mountain bike, actually. I didn't really know how to run. I swam. I was a lifeguard. I biked around town, but running wise, I never ran because I always played, I was volleyball, basketball, cheerleader, softball, right? So I really didn't have to run like you do in a race. So, and then I guess it was in 2001 is when I told myself I need to get serious, because 2002 was going to be, I was going to be turning 31. So that's when I actually hired a coach. And so I actually trained for about a year to get ready for the Ironman in 2002. But I did little races. I did sprints. I did Olympics. I worked my way up to it. I did a half Ironman in 2001. And then 2002 is when I did Ironman Wisconsin. But I think I see what I see a lot these days is I will have people reach out to me saying, I want to do an Ironman triathlon and I already signed up for one. I'm like, that's great. What's your background? Oh, I've never done a triathlon. And it just floors me that it's a process. You have to work your way up to it. So
when people come to you like that, do you normally say they haven't signed up for one yet? Do you recommend that same timeline, like a year before you actually go for that full triathlon? Yeah.
Yep. And what I do require is 2 half Ironmans before you do a full. In that, whether I'm training them, whether they're, self-trained, whether they go with another coach, I always say you got to do 2 halves before you do a full.
Well, what do you say to the school of thought? Because after we did that 70.3, many people told us that. Right? Yeah, we did Galveston. It was a blast. Yep. We loved it. Yeah. We were already drinking the Kool-Aid and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Got hooked.
I was out there with you guys.
Yeah,
on your left.
That was definitely you. Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think we saw you at any point. You were just already done. But after we did that, so many people have told us, like, oh, if you've done a half, you can do a full. Like, no problem. It's not that much harder. It's just longer. What do you say to that?
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
It's not double the distance. I think what I see a lot of people say that it's like, oh, well, all you're doing is doubling the distance, but it's the training. It's the time training away from family and friends. It's not double the amount of training. It's so much more mentally, physically, emotionally, nutritionally. I mean, that's a totally different beast as it is doing a full.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 hours to 3 hours on the bike feels like a long time. 5+ hours is really going to be a long time.
Yeah. And I don't, and here's the thing. I don't want to discourage people not to try an Ironman, not to try a half Ironman, but I do encourage people to work your way up to those distance, just because it does take a lot of time. You may buy a $5,000 bike and you do your first Ironman, and it may be your last time you ever hop on that bike ever again because of the training that you did and how long it took you. So I just encourage people to work their way up to it.
Are there certain time goals you like to see on those 70.3s before going to the full? That you're like, hey, kind of aim for this and then you can graduate? No,
I don't feel that way. I think you learn so much as an athlete on those half Ironmans. You're just going to get better and better each as you keep trying. At least that's my goal for my athletes is that, I just had a girl do a half Ironman yesterday in Syracuse, and poor thing, she had to rent a bike because she was traveling. So she didn't have her own bike. She had nutrition. She's like, I felt good. She's like, but I didn't feel as prepared on the bike because it wasn't my bike. And so then it's like, okay, well, that's not your priority race. Ironman Arizona is your race, but at least we figured out what we need to work on, and that's her bike.
Well, let's dive into a little bit of the training aspect of it. And I'm sure, when people come to you, they're at all different, athletic backgrounds and levels, and so they might start out at different places. But what's that process look like?
Oh, boy. First of all, I will definitely look at the athlete's schedule and their life.
Okay.
Because what I do specifically, I could probably sell, 10, 15 people and a package, say, here's your 20-week program, good luck, for $200. And, I just made, whatever, however, $2,000, and so, but that's not the type of coach I am, because I'm all about customizing your triathlon training program around your life, because we all have busy lives. And I hate the word busy. Our lives are very full, right? We may have kids, we may have, a very stressful job. And so I always will talk to the people, like, what can you commit to me? Like, what can you give me? Can you give me 3 swims a week? Can you give me 3 bikes a week, 3 runs a week, 2 lifts? And if they can't, then I say, okay, let's work your way up to that. And so I think what happens is that people don't realize the time commitment it is to an Ironman. And so I try to give them the cold hard facts up front. And so it can be quite a bit with a full-time job. I mean, right now I'm coaching an athlete who's anesthesiologist, and his call hours are crazy. But we work around his schedule. It's like, okay, if he's got call that day, I know I can't give him a swim and a run. He needs to be on the trainer or lifting at the gym where he's right by his phone, things like that.
And then is there kind of a baseline test? Do you go out and check their miles or their swims or?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so I will, I generally will do 1,000-meter baseline swim. I'll usually do a 40K time trial, 20 or 40K. 40K is the best in my eyes. And then I'll have athletes do a 5K run. And then usually, and I don't know how, like, background-wise, but, if I take somebody brand new, spanking new, and I test them, and then in 6 weeks later, I test them again, they're going to increase their improvement drastically. Or if you take me and then, I do a baseline, and then 6 weeks later, there's not going to be too much improvement. And so it is nice to see that baseline with athletes is that swim, that bike, and that run. And then the lifts, I generally don't do a lot of max lift testing. I do about 3 rep max testing, because a lot of triathletes don't lift, and they should. And they can't get very comfortable under the bar, like during that heavy training of swim, bike, and run.
Yeah, we'd love to dive into some of that strength aspect for triathlons in a little while.
Sure.
Yeah, well, what's kind of the methodology and the guidelines that you have them follow as far as the bike, swim, and run and lifting? So do you have them do only like one long event of those per week, and so one long swim, and it's a shorter run, et cetera, or how do you break that up?
Yeah, I do something called periodization that a lot of people know about. It's very well known in the weightlifting world, triathlon world. And so what I do is I peak these athletes to get ready for their major race, their A race. Could be an Ironman, could be a half Ironman, Olympic distance, whatever they're getting ready for. And then, I'll break up their week. So maybe they do a lot of 2-a-days. I will tell you that right now. If you are training for an Ironman, you will do a lot of 2-a-days. And usually what I'll try to do is that I'll, for the swim, bike, and run, there's usually a long bike, or like you said, a long swim, bike, and run. There's usually generally an easier one, swim, bike, and run. And then there's usually like a tempo or interval for the swim, bike, and run. The great thing about the swimming is that you could do interval work a lot, and the recovery is going to be so much easier than a run and a bike. And then usually whatever their weakest sport is, I will usually add one. So if the athlete's a weak runner, then I'll have 3 swims, 3 bikes, 4 runs, 2 lifts. So it could be a lot.
And are any of those on the same day? Like, are you swimming, biking, running on the same day? Yeah.
I usually will. So my rule of thumb is 2 workouts a day. If you can, separate them by 6 hours. If you can't, then set it up as you would as a triathlon. So for example, I go swim with the master. I have the athlete go swim with the masters group at noon, and they want to go and they want to do a run, but they don't have time to do a run in the morning and the evening. So do that after. So do the swim first and then the run next. If here's a good example, if there's a hard bike one day, so I'll have them do the hard bike early and then do the lift later on that afternoon. So make sure they get that food in them, they get the rest, they get the recovery from that hard bike. I am a big advocate of not putting long bike on Saturday, long run on Sunday. Oh, I hate that concept. Everybody's like, don't you have to train on tired legs? I'm like, if you're training on tired legs, how are you training yourself to go fast?
Right.
So that's a whole other podcast.
I know Jake and I, we kind of built a template of, we would do all 3 disciplines twice a week, basically. One was a sprint or interval, one was long. And then Sunday was always kind of our long, like, triathlon or mixed day.
Okay.
We're traveling so much, and then we'd be lifting 3 days a week typically.
Good.
And that was for a 70.3. We like that template, but I definitely see moving forward how we probably need to up it a little bit more on some of the disciplines. But,
and I think sometimes, I get a lot of athletes that will say, hey, I've been doing CrossFit for the last 5 years, or I've been lifting, blah, 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 for the last 5 years. I want to do Ironman. I'm going to do CrossFit 5 times a week. Going back to that sort of that old school CrossFit endurance, or going back to the CrossFit endurance world. And it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is just to cross that finish line great. Do CrossFit 5 times a week, swim, bike, and run. Fill it in. But if your goal is to do pretty well for a race, then you're going to have to swim, bike, and run. It's basic exercise physiology. It's specificity. You have to swim, bike, and run to do well at races like that.
What are your thoughts on limiting some of those long routines? So focusing more on the intervals, more on the sprints for every discipline, bike, swim, and run, and limiting that time so the people that are busy, if you can squeeze in those intervals in 20 to 30 minutes versus going and swimming 1,600 meters in the pool for 45 minutes or whatever it is. What are your thoughts on doing more of the intervals and less of the long distance stuff?
I think it's going back again to what are your goals? If your goal is just to cross that finish line and say that you've done it, you're a half Ironman, you're an Ironman athlete, I don't agree with it, because I feel that if you are going to be out on the bike for 6 hours, you need to learn to be at least on the bike for 5. And I know other people have different train of thoughts. I realize that. But me, I think I'm an old school triathlon coach who did CrossFit, drank the Kool-Aid between my, I did 4 Ironmans. I took an 8-year sabbatical. That's where I found CrossFit. That's where I drank the Kool-Aid. And then what was happening was that I realized I wanted to get back to Ironman. And so I would try to do CrossFit 3 times a week with swim, bikes, and runs, and I could not maintain it. I'm a little bit older than y'all. So, I couldn't do it. And I was just constantly in a state of fatigue. And so what was happening is that I started dropping down my strength training, CrossFit workouts, and then started increasing more of my swim, bikes, and runs because I'm trying to get to Kona. That's my goal. So I can't be doing CrossFit 5 times a week to get to Kona.
Yeah, that's what we basically came to for us as well, is we had to just drop the Metcons down. But we grew up gym junkies, and it's hard for us to put the weights down, too. And
I understand.
Yeah, we were still getting in there and doing the major lifts and that sort of thing.
Good.
But what do you see? What kind of athletic backgrounds do you see that people come to the table with that help them the most? So, like, does CrossFit, would that help you prepare to be an Ironman versus, a soccer player or whatever else? Or maybe it's just a well-rounded athlete. I don't know.
Yeah, good question. You see a lot of swimmers do really well in the triathlon world, but you don't win on the swim for the triathlon. I think that's just it. I think an overall well-rounded athlete. I think my newest thing is that strength training is the fountain of youth. It truly is, and I think we all know that. It's just getting into the gym and actually doing it. Like you said, if you guys are gym junkies, then you already know what I'm talking about. But I think an overall athlete, not having too much strength and training and that type of thing, like not being too bulky, but then not being too thin. Like sometimes you see marathon runners that are just, there's nothing on them. I always laugh at the picture. It's like, who's in better shape? It's like the skinny marathon guy and then this huge sprinter. It's like you sit there and you're like, okay, there's probably a balance between it. And I honestly feel that that's what I do for my athletes. I give them that nice balance of a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. So we hear a lot talking about triathlons to friends and family and people we meet. Oh, I just don't think I could do the swim. Oh, I hate the water. Or isn't that the number one thing I think people say getting into it is like, how am I going to do the swim? What would be your best advice for someone out there who wants to do triathlon, but is doubting themselves on the swim?
Go to a master swim group or find somebody that can teach you how to swim comfortably, and find a coach in your area that can do private lessons. Really, the thing is that, yes, I do hear that a lot. I had one guy, this was years ago, but he's like, I hate swimming, but I want to do an Ironman. I'm like, okay. And so I was like, okay, we're going to go out to the lake and I'm going to swim next to you. And I think I had a kickboard the whole time just so he could hold on to that, hold on to the kickboard, and we would go across the lake and back, or we went to like a point back, every single week, and he did his Ironman.
How long did that process take him?
Over a year.
Yeah, because we have a friend right now who was training with us for that Cap Tex, and he just has this anxiety about water. And we've tried to swim with him multiple times, and whenever the Cap Tex swim got canceled, he's ecstatic.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, we feel like the swim was one of the most enjoyable parts. It's just so refreshing, and being in that cooler water early in the morning, like, we loved it, and we just want him to enjoy it too, but it's such a point of stress for him, and we don't always know how to help him overcome that.
Yeah, I think, I really think getting with a specific swim coach in the local area will be the key for those athletes that are just horrified of the water. And then find like a group of people that will go out to the lake with them, and just say, nope, you're not stopping. If they have a really good mindset of, getting into the gym, going and biking and running, it's just that fear factor that a lot of people have about the swim. And I get that. I understand that. I've never had that factor, but I know it's out there. So I do understand.
Well, even the open water can be a big deal for people versus just swimming in the pool. Because I know that we were swimming in Lake Bryan in College Station, you can't even see your hand if it's right up next to your face underneath there. So that can be freaky for people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were 2 races that I freaked out in the water. Which is, I've done a lot of races, and the ironic thing, it's been the same lake. It's in Lake Coeur d'Alene. And what got me each time, I feel, was the cold. It just was that absolute shock of cold water, and then you have 2,000 of your closest friends piling on top of you as well. And so I panicked, and one time I looked up and I was like, okay, that buoy looks really far and the shoreline looks really far. Oh, boop, what am I going to do? And I sat there and I just I just had to really concentrate and just sort of tell myself to HTFU, and off I went. So,
do you kind of swim out away from the pack a little bit? Or do you ride on that buoy line? Because I know if you ride on that line... I ride on that buoy line. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, you're fast enough.
Yeah.
I definitely think a tip for people is after doing the swims, get in the front on a corner. Because the middle front is pretty packed. Anywhere behind the front is packed. Mm-hmm. And I know for us, like in Galveston, it took us a while to... we never saw each other, obviously, in the water.
Right.
But it took a while to navigate your way, to have enough room to start really going. And so I think getting in the front corners is huge.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either one of them.
Yeah.
But have you ever used the, is it Finis, the snorkel? The training snorkel? Have you seen that?
I have seen it. I have not used it.
I haven't either. I just was wondering. I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, and I don't know how it would help. But, I just don't know enough about it to comment on it.
Yeah, me either. So let's get into a little bit of the strength aspect. I know you've stated it's very important. How do you approach? So you recommend the 2 days. Mm-hmm. Are you splitting those up into one's a strength day, one's more of a kind of hypertrophy day or endurance lift day? How do you approach those?
So I usually do a 5-week strength program for the athletes, and so I build up their workouts. And actually, I have I could send you guys the link, but I have an example of a 5-week program that I would give a triathlete a workout. And the program is a little bit more advanced athlete that is comfortable in the gym. So, for example, I will do, the first 3 sets. The first 2 weeks I will do like maybe a 3x7 of back squats, and the next day maybe Romanian deadlifts. But then I'll do like back squats, and then I'll maybe have a gymnastics movement, push-ups or pull-ups. If you don't have a pull-up bar, if you're not good at pull-ups, then you do a band. If you don't have a band, then you do lat pull-down machine, like things like that. So in the beginning is strength, but then I have them build that strength. So 3x7s, 4x6s, 5x5s type of thing. And then usually after that, I will give them a high-intensity workout, or WOD if you want to call it, and it will be less than 12 minutes. Because here's what I have learned with doing classes for triathletes, is that your body, as triathletes, we swim, bike, and run over 15 minutes generally, I would say every day, other than your day off, right? So for you to go in a gym and do another 20-minute WOD, you're just doing that same routine over and over. So what I want my athletes to do is to get in that phosphagen level phase of that, just going hard as nails, and just learning how to push themselves. And, that's interval work. That's interval work on the bike, on the run, and in the pool. But I love it in the gym. I love EMOMs. EMOMs are fantastic every minute on the minute. Like maybe on the odds you do, 5 power cleans, and then you have that rest. And then that next EMOM, you do burpees. You do 10 burpees, But I think we all like to puke on burpees. Yeah. But yeah, I think getting into the gym, having a strength program, but then also doing that high intensity for under 12 minutes is going to be the key for athlete success.
Yeah, it's just teaching you to continue to go, basically.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, you got it.
And I think sometimes what will happen is athletes will go in and it's like, I got to do leg day. And they will do back squats, lunges, step-ups, and then they'll do abs. And then they'll be like, I can't walk. Well, yeah. Like, you just trash your legs to go for that bike and run. I remember doing, do you know CrossFit workouts, Karen?
I don't know. Which
one's that?
150 wall balls for time.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was actually an open workout. It was for the CrossFit Games, and I was like, I can do it, and train for a half Ironman at the same time. Yeah, not so smart. But I did. It was 100 double unders, and then you had to do 150 wall balls, and then you had to do muscle ups, which I don't have, but muscle up attempts. So I got through the double unders, no problem. I got through the wall balls, and I didn't get to the muscle ups. Well, then the next day I had a 90-minute run. My legs were trashed. I'm like, that was 150 squats. 150 squats. And I think that's what a lot of people will do when they go into the gym. They just hammer out the legs, and then they can't walk. And then, it's like, oh, I'm not going to go back to the gym. That just didn't work out. It's like, well.
Yeah, you got to do it the right way.
You got to do it the right way. Yeah.
Well, I know when we were in the gym and we're training for that 70.3 and we'll be back squatting, and people know that you're training for an Ironman, and they'll look at you and be like, that's not going to help you. It's not going to help you out there. You know what?
Yes, it will.
What's your answer to people? Why do they need strength work when training for tries?
They need strength work to support. Oh God, how can I explain this? To me, the strength is going to just hold that body together so much more and less injuries. Like you see, you hear people say, well, if I go and lift, I'm going to get injured. Well, if you run on a trail and you roll your ankle, you're going to get injured too. Like there's always that possibility of injury. But what I see when I see athletes, when I see triathletes lift weight, is that one, it's going to help them structurally. 2, it's going to help them with balance. 3, it's going to help them get up those, power up those hills on the bike, power up the hill on the run. Like it's just that little bit of power that's going to help them in the long run.
And do you typically recommend them lifting early in the day or late in the day? Where does it fall in that triathlon training?
Yeah, so it depends on what their workout is for the day. So, for example, usually I will put that weightlifting with either a swim or a bike, generally not with a run. And if the athlete wants to get the workout done in the morning and then know that they have an easy swim later on that day, totally fine. If the bike is the priority that day, I would rather have you get the bike done. Like, let's say you're doing interval work. I'd rather have you get that bike workout done because that's going to be your priority. Recover and then do the lift later on that afternoon. Does that help?
Yeah. No,
okay.
And I was going to pass along, Jake and I experimented with a protocol that Mark Sisson recommended, which was he would take athletes, and this was something he just recently started talking about that I guess he would use back in the day with some other, Mark Sisson was a big triathlon guy.
Yeah.
And he would take 80% of the 1 rep max, and he primarily apply it to back squat, but you could apply it to major lifts, right? And probably except for deadlift. I don't really see the application there, but so say it would be 3 sets at 80% of your 1 rep max, so you'd load the bar up, and it'd only be a 10-second rest. And Jake and I would just, chalk it on the cement.
Yeah.
3
So
reps.
3 reps. Yeah. So it'd be 3 reps, 10 seconds rest, 3 reps for as long as you could until you could only do 2. Then you do 2 for as long as you could, and then you'd only do once. You'd only do 1 rep one time once you got that low.
Okay.
And it was mainly for power output on the bike.
Sure.
And he would see massive gains with power output in the legs on power meters, testing the athlete's strength. And so we applied it to bench press, weighted pull-ups, back squat, front squat, just your major big compound lifts. And you could see it. We'd only do that once a week. That would be our main strength aspect for that body group, once a week. And you could really see it week by week increase on how many times you could do those reps of 3, reps of 2, and so on.
And you never felt thrashed at all.
No, it was, and it took.
That's great.
It took 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Total, and you look at that and how much weight and how much poundage you had lifted for that 6 minutes versus say just doing a 5x3 with a 90-second rest. Not only does that take 12 or 13 minutes, but you're not even getting in that power aspect as much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've
really
noticed too, if I do much better on more of the explosive aspects of coming out of the squat versus like taking my time going up. So I try not to go as heavy just because I do want that explosiveness for running and cycling. And like what you were talking about, like, the main lifts, I think are important. One of my most popular blogs is top 5 strengths or top 5 exercises for triathletes in the gym. It's squats, Romanian deadlifts, push-ups, pull-ups, and then V-ups. But I think shoulder to overhead is great. Whether it's a strict press, whether it's a push press. Sometimes I think push jerks, you're using too much of your legs. So you really want to get that movement. I'll be sitting in here putting together my athletes' workouts. I'll be like, okay, so we got a press. Now where's the pull? There's a squat, so I'm working the quads. So then the next day I need to work the hamstrings, like the posterior chain. And so I try to build that up. I try to do full body 2 times a week, but with specific lifts in that week.
Yeah, I love it. Training is huge, obviously, as we know. But I do feel like the nutrition is the foundation, pretty much. And so let's dive into a little bit. We can talk diet first, and then actual, race day nutrition.
Sure.
So what do you have your athletes diet-wise follow?
Well, I am not a nutritionist. Usually, I will send people to that aspects, to a nutritionist for that. But I tell the athletes, okay, slow down on the cookies, slow down on the donuts, that type of thing. Every time you go do a workout doesn't mean you can reinforce yourself with a donut, things like that. Like and for me, I am a big advocate of counting my macros.
Yep.
And that has helped me so much, because what I realized with the counting of my macros was that I was getting specific quality food. And if I wanted a glass of wine, well, I could either eat more or have the glass of wine. So I'd be like, well, no, my body needs to eat more versus the empty calories, of not getting much nutrition in me type of thing. So I will concentrate and tell my athletes, if you are interested in looking at nutrition as a whole, here's my nutritionist that does the counting the macros. I have a couple other friends in San Antonio that will, help them out as well. So, but that's the thing, like, I'll be sitting there eating a flour tortilla, and people are like, what, you're eating flour? Like, it's like, yeah, my body needs it. Like, but according to my macros, I can eat it. It's okay. Like, I'm not going to die by eating it. And I think that's what a lot of people think, that, oh, you have to be clean, you have to eat healthy. Well, yeah, but you also have to enjoy life. So. Yeah, we're huge advocates of counting the macros versus just the calories, because we know all calories aren't equal, obviously. Right.
And it's kind of sad, I think, what you're saying about slowing down on the cookies and donuts, and it's just the sign of the age we live in. People feel like, oh, well, I did all this work, I deserve it. I deserve that cupcake, I deserve that donut, I deserve that, sugar-filled protein shake after my workouts, when it's like, you kind of just ruined all that work you just put in. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's interesting, because after I do an Ironman, after Ironman Texas, I wanted to go up to Austin and get a voodoo donut. I mean, because I kept craving a donut all stinking, like, for 2 months. I kept thinking, voodoo donut. And I never got up there. And so I think I went to a local, donut shop here, and I was like, oh, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
It wasn't even
voodoo
good.
Is something special. And after race days and big days like that, don't let us fool you. I mean, we'll still go treat ourselves after big days like that. I mean, you deserve it at that point once the training's put in, but you can't do that on an everyday basis after your training.
Yeah.
Usually. Go ahead.
After my long runs, I crave a burger. So I will go to Five Guys and get a burger with lettuce, but it's lettuce, no bun. Yeah. And then I'll be like, they're like, you want the fries? I'm like, No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. But if I eat too many fries, that they're, like you said, I just ruin it all. But I do crave those burgers.
Do you track with something like MyFitnessPal or a certain app?
Yeah, I sure do. MyFitnessPal is great.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think I upgraded it or whatever to get the specific macros. Yeah.
Is there a certain fueling you recommend during the race? I know Jake and I are big advocates of high fat, and so we try to maintain that even into the race. So we don't fuel a lot with the gels and the carbohydrate based drinks.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? What's kind of your recommendation for athletes, and obviously train with what you're going to race?
Of course.
As well on the nutrition.
So this is what I tell everybody is that you gotta figure out what works for you. What works for me may not work for you guys, vice versa. I have tried, you name it. I've done Hammer products. I've done Infinite. I've done Generation UCAN. I've done power bars. Even power bars stuck to my bike stem. Back in the days, I had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I have a friend that does PB&J and Fritos.
Wow.
I've had friends that do tacos, like bean and cheese tacos. Yeah, it's crazy.
On race day.
On race day.
Wow. I mean, you're gonna burn it all, I guess, but
yeah, but
how clean is it burning?
Yeah. So, like I said, you have to figure out what works for you. With training, with racing like that, I don't need people to I don't need them to replace their calories. I need to replenish. So, for example, like your glycogen levels are high, maybe you had a good dinner the night before or whatever. So you go into the race, they're going to start dropping down. Like think about a gas tank in a car. So like you're at the halfway mark. Do you fill it with gels? Sure, you can. It will go back up to, full, but then within 20, 30 minutes, or maybe 30, 40 minutes, it's going to go back down past halfway again, It's that keep going back and forth. I have done Generation UCAN, and that's a totally different beast. That's teaching you how to use your fat storages, probably like what you guys are doing. So you don't need as many calories. I've done halves with Generation UCAN, and I love it. I've done fulls with Generation UCAN, and I've completely bonked. I didn't have, I needed that little bit of sugar. But currently, right now, I use something called EFS Pro. One scoop is 40 calories, and it's a high-calorie-based liquid fuel. And, each bottle, bigger bottle than that, but each bottle is usually about 220 calories for me. And I take it in every hour on the hour, usually.
Yeah, we use a starch in one of our products, our post-workout product called Rally, but the carb in there is essentially the same thing as Generation UCAN. It allows you to burn free fatty acids.
Yep.
And we played around. We have some ideas for a triathlon specific product. We won't get into it on the air here, but we'll definitely talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because following the high fat diets like we do, that's what our bodies are used to burning, and so you don't want to switch come game day.
Yeah, and we had pre-made this experimental fuel that we had been playing with for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll preface that with, if you are following a high-fat diet and whatnot, make sure that you bring the stuff to the race that you need, because what's on there on the course isn't always going to be, it's not the same at every race for one, and then it might not be what you need. So
correct. And I know, like, I have friends and athletes that will still do Generation UCAN. I was actually just talking to the Generation UCAN rep on Friday, and he said to me, he goes, that's the thing. He goes, after 4 hours of doing an Ironman, 4 hours maybe doing a marathon, you're going to need that little bit of sugar.
Yeah.
And so what I have done when I was doing Generation UCAN, you are going to need that sugar. I would take flat Coke and I would swish it around in my mouth and then spit it out, because I would be afraid to swallow it because I don't know what it would affect with my GI issues when I was doing Generation UCAN.
And that
now
acidity.
I just drink the stuff. Yeah. But it's that sugar.
We have some ideas for you that we played around. We'll definitely share them with you because your brain does need a little bit of that glucose hit while racing. So, yeah, if you are already following like the high fat kind of protocol, just know that you do need a little glucose when training and on race day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know because we got out there and weren't 100% prepared, and it led to me having some GI issues out there on the course, which is not fun.
Not fun.
Yeah. How do you deal with that, or your clients that do
that cramping?
Yeah, cramping, or I think it was those gels that really upset my stomach too.
Yes.
Because I was just trying to get in whatever at that point to help out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were shortened by what we had planned to have at the end of the bike, we only had at the beginning of the bike. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So kind of towards the end, we were relying on a couple things. Plus, hey, I'm gonna try to take in one of these gels, which there are some that are better than others. But
yeah. I something that my coach and I have worked on a lot has been the GI issues. But what I have dealt with is he suggested that I go on a low residue diet for like 2 or 3 days beforehand, or is it? Yeah, it's residue, but it's like no fiber, like nada. It's like it's so plain, like everything that I would normally eat, berries, salad, like all the good carbohydrates.
Right.
I would not eat. So I ate rice, chicken, eggs, melon. I mean, it was so But honestly, like Ironman Florida last year, I PR'd. I ran under 4 hours on the marathon after a swim and a bike. And I didn't have any GI issues. I think a lot. I'll talk to my athletes about, okay, let's look at your eating habits prior to the race, and then what are you taking during the race? And if it's affecting you in training, then you got to change that ASAP. If an athlete does have GI issues on the run or on the race, guess what? Go to the bathroom, get it done with, get out of there. Yep. Don't be baking a cake in there, So,
are there any recommendations you have for athletes keeping on muscle during training? Do you ever get that? Like, I feel like I'm losing weight too much, or I'm kind of withering away.
Yeah, I do. Once again, it's going back to that whole specificity, that exercise physiology. If you are starting to swim, bike, and run more, then muscle's going to come off a little bit. So what do I suggest? Still try to get into the gym. You may not be lifting as much, lifting as heavy, but getting closer to that race, it's okay if you lose a little bit of that muscle mass, because it's going to be a little bit easier to swim, bike, and run.
Now, once you're all trained up, you got the nutrition dialed in and everything else, what's been like the smallest change for you that's made the biggest difference, such as, like an aero helmet or, a different kind of a bike, whatever it might be? What are those small changes that people can make that will go a long way?
Race wheels. And
let's get geeked out on equipment here for a little bit. So I know Jake and I need some advice there.
And then like race wheels, like figure out like head wheels are fantastic, zip wheels. Those, if you could spend the money on wheels, that's going to help you tremendously. If you are very serious about getting ready to do an Ironman, I highly recommend a power meter, 100%. And I would say a power meter over those wheels. But
that just attaches to the pedal, right?
Well, there's a couple different power meters. You got the one that you could attach to the hub of the wheel. It could attach to the crank, and then it could attach. There's another one that will attach to the pedals. There's a whole bunch of different power meters out there. The one that we used is attached to the cranks, and they get both the legs, versus the one on the pedal will just get one leg.
Is there a brand you recommend for that?
Yes, Quark. Quarq. And it's the most expensive one, but it's the most reputable one that I see.
Because I think I use Polar products. I don't have the power meter, but I was looking at their bike monitor, but I think that they have the one you're talking about where it's only, you mainly get one reading.
I think so too.
Leg, yeah.
I think, I don't know how accurate those are, but Cork has been around for quite some time. I know there's another one that's out there that I think is still being questioned, because even sometimes I'll look at somebody's data that has the one and I'm like, oh, is that accurate? Things like that. So, but I am a big advocate of Cork, and I'm not sponsored by them.
Now, I know in Galveston it was pretty windy, of course, right there on the coast. Did you still use the race wheels that day and the full rims? Does that
sure did.
give you any problems at all?
No, it actually helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's on both wheels or just the back? Or?
The back. The back is going to be the full race, full disc wheel. And then the front will be, I don't know, I'm so bad on equipment-wise, but my husband's my equipment manager. A little bit thicker wheels, but obviously not, a disc, because you can't have that. But yeah, with that wind, it's actually, with having a disc, it's actually better because that wind isn't going through that, it's going around the bike,
Makes sense.
But yeah, it's a big difference. It really is.
Yeah.
Any specific equipment you recommend on the swim? Jake and I use the Blue 70 wetsuits. Been happy with those. Or even, how important is a swim skin? Because we're getting into that time of year where people, wetsuits aren't going to be legal.
Yeah,
and
I'm a big advocate of swim skins. I think they're good. I think what happens is that, it depends on what you're racing in. If you're racing in a tri-top and a tri-bottom, but then you're able to plug all of that, compress it, that's just only going to help you a little bit more, sleeker type of thing. I am sponsored by Roca Sports, and I have tried on so many wetsuits in my lifetime, and that Roca wetsuit that I had for Galveston didn't even feel like I had a wetsuit on. And so I actually, my goal, I think, because I'm going to Lubbock this weekend,
I'm sorry.
I'll be doing this. Yeah, I know. I'll be doing the sprint, but my husband's going to be doing the half. But I actually want him to film me putting on my wetsuit, and I could actually put the wetsuit on in under 90 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But yeah, I want to do the video for you guys and saying, hey, how to put a wetsuit on in under 90 seconds.
Yeah, we'll link to that.
How about transition times? Any tips for transition?
Ooh, don't bake a cake in there. You don't need to change your socks out. You don't. And let's go back to that. If you're doing a sprint, if you're doing Olympic, if you're doing a half, you are not able to change, right? You have to stay in that, everything that you're doing, everything that you're wearing, right? So the transitions, practice it. That's what you have to do. It's you get out of the pool, have your bike set up, put on your shoes, helmet, glasses, take off. You don't need a big towel to lay everything out, and then you got all your stuff aligned. I'll usually take a little hand towel. There's my towel. I don't even dry off. I don't even dry off my feet anymore. I've seen pros go under a minute on some transitions. Yeah, wow. It's crazy. But yeah, for sprints, Olympics and half, you can't change. For fulls, you can change. So if people are doing an Ironman and they want to swim in a swimsuit, especially if it's their first Ironman, they want to swim in a swimsuit and they want to go in and change into cycling gear, and then on their run they want to change into running gear, by all means, take the time and do it. It's, be comfortable. It's a long day not to be comfortable.
Yeah.
For an Ironman.
How close are you to qualifying for Kona? How close have you come?
Oh, man. Let's see. I guess last year in Florida, I was 7th in my age group, but it only rolled down to 3 slots. It was 2004. It was sort of like a weird thing, but I got 7th in my age group, and it rolled down to 6th.
Jeez, wow.
Yeah.
How many shots added do you get a year?
Well, as many Ironmans as I want to do. But I have done 3 Ironmans in 9 months, and I'm a little tired. And so I'm really missing some gym time. I've gotten back into the gym again, and, the first day back, and the next day it's like, the second day is like, oh, mother of pearl. My ego got in the way, It's like, I could do 85 pounds of back squats, 10 by 3, no problem. That wasn't smart. But yeah, the thing is I'm in the 45 to 49 age group. These ladies are fast. I pretty much have to be in the top 5. But so if I wanted to, I could have gone and done Ironman Coeur d'Alene this year. I could go and do Florida. I could do Arizona. I can do all these races to get ready to try to qualify. But what I came to realize after Ironman Texas was that I was chasing the dream the wrong way. I was chasing slots. So I signed up for Ironman Texas. It's like, oh, there's going to be 4 slots there. No problem. I'll be in the top 5. I can be in the top 5. Well, everybody else thought that same thing. I thought, okay, I could go to Ironman Coeur d'Alene this year and try to qualify for this year. But then if I don't qualify, will I go to Kona with my husband who qualified and be grumpy because I didn't qualify because I'm not racing? So what I realized was that I need to just trust in the process and trust in my training, trust in my coach, and it will come. So I need to stop chasing numbers and people and start chasing my better self.
Yeah, I love it.
Good advice for everybody.
So how long have you been doing the coaching thing?
I've been coaching since 2001. I got certified with USA Triathlon, but I say seriously the last 4 years. And really, I quit a job that it was my dream job. I worked at SeaWorld for many years. That's why I'm good at getting in a wetsuit. But I was an animal trainer for years. And so I left there in 09. I left there in 09.
We need to do another podcast about the Blackfish documentary.
Oh, boy, right. I'll come at you with my fist up.
Yeah, that could be another conversation another time.
Every story.
Oh, I know it. It was a very one-sided documentary for sure, and I know that, but it's intriguing is all.
It is intriguing,
So,
yeah.
Sorry to get you derailed there.
No. And it's funny because I don't say that a lot because of that, but, if people want to talk to me about it,
yeah,
come on, bring it on. Bring it on. But yeah, so I left my career after 14 years in the marine mammal field and went back to school and got my master's in kinesiology with an emphasis in exercise science, because what I realized is I was coaching all these people, but I was like, what is actually going on in that body? And that really taught me so much and gave me so much more confidence to become a coach. And now I, coach athletes to get through a finisher line with a smile on their face, and I love it. I love it. So
how can people go about getting personal coaching from you?
Well, they could go to my website at jenrulon.com, and you could follow me on all social medias: Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. My gosh, they're all out there, right? But no, yeah. Reach out to me, jen@jenrulon.com. Shoot me an email. Say, hey, I heard you from the podcast with these guys, and whatever.
Yeah.
Just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to chat with them, to people more. So I will tell people up front, I am not cheap, but I will get the job done, and I'll make sure you get the job done, because that's the type of coach I am. I am a non-excuse person. I don't, I had one athlete who signed up for Ironman Vineman, and she wasn't getting the work done. But the great thing is that she realized it and she acknowledged it, and she goes, you know what, Jen, I need to bail on this race because I need to spend time with my family. I need to take care of my people. And I'm like, much respect, because what I like to teach athletes is that if you feel that it's not going well for you or things are not happening the way that they should, doing an Ironman is very hard on the body, the mind, the bank account. And so if you're not fully into it 100%, it's okay to bail. It's fine. So
one thing I loved about your philosophy is that you try to get your athletes to a point where they don't need you in your coaching anymore.
Yes.
And that's amazing. That's like you're basically trying to put yourself out of business in a way, right?
I am.
So
yeah.
Where did that come from? How'd you come to that?
I think what happened was that I love to educate. I love to teach people that you could do this on your own as well. I mean, granted, I do not coach myself. I'll just move things around because I know I can. Oh, I don't want to do that, repeats of 800s. That sucks. Why would I want to do that? But yeah, I think what I've realized with athletes is that I want to educate you and guide you to be a better athlete and a better you. And if you're able to do that on your own, then by all means, go for it. More power to you. Yeah, and you're right. I probably do put myself out of business for that reason and why I'm always looking for clients. But my heart is filled by helping those people that I did.
Yeah, that's great.
And I have a lot of athletes that have done Ironmans with me who are no longer, doing Ironmans, and they're good. They've done their thing. They've one and done, or, life gets in the way, family becomes, the priority, and by all means, I love it. I'm okay with that.
All right, Jen. Well, awesome. Well, where can people find out more about you? I know we'll link to all the social media outlets, but any final words?
Find your why behind doing a triathlon or a race or anything that you do in life. Because if you don't know the reason behind what you're doing, then it's hard to wake up in the morning to go do that. So that's my final thought.
We'll leave you with that. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Jen. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the 2Fit Podcast. This episode is brought to you by 2Fit USA, the sports nutrition company owned and operated by the 2Fit guys. To show our appreciation for you tuning into the podcast, we would like to give you a 10% off your entire order at 2fitusa.com. All of our products